everyone. Thank you for joining me. My name is Dr. Jason Uchida. I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine and your host of this program about naturopathic medicine. Welcome to Island Wellness, a program designed to educate you about naturopathic medicine. I graduated from the National College of Naturopathic Medicine in Portland, Oregon in 1988. I've been practicing naturopathic medicine in Hawaii for the past 21 years. Naturopathic physicians are licensed in the state of Hawaii as primary care providers, just like medical doctors. Let me give you a brief introduction to naturopathic medicine. Naturopathic medicine is a primary healthcare system founded on the honored universal principle that nature is the ultimate healer. Its roots go back beyond the time of Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine. Naturopathic medicine's core belief is that our body has the innate ability to maintain and restore optimum health, no matter what the current status may be. Therefore, a physician's true role is to support this process by using modalities of treatment that work in harmony with the body's natural healing ability. Well, that's enough about me and naturopathic medicine. Let's find out if it works. To help illustrate this, I typically ask a patient to share his or her experience with naturopathic medicine so that you can get a better understanding of how this safe and effective form of medicine works. It's been estimated that Americans spend over $30 billion a year on over-the-counter medications for digestive and elimination problems, chronic digestive disorders like heartburn, gastroesophageal reflux, bloating, belching, flatulence, nausea, diarrhea, alternating diarrhea, and constipation, and irritable bowel syndrome are the main reason why 40 million Americans seek over-the-counter medication relief. Today we're going to look into what may be the cause of all of these digestive problems, and we'll teach you what you can do to help yourself resolve these issues with naturopathic medicine. However, before we learn what causes these digestive symptoms, we first need to understand what a digestive tract is and how it works. In general, the stomach, liver, and gallbladder, the pancreas, and the small intestine make up the bulk of our digestive tract. In general, our digestive tract's sole purpose is to break down grossly large foods like fish, meats, vegetables, beans, and whole grains into tiny microscopic molecules called amino acids, glucose, vitamins, and minerals. Amino acids are the building block to the human body and is used to repair muscle and organ tissue. Glucose is the primary fuel that muscle tissue and brain use as fuel to make us function at its highest level. Amino acids are derived from protein, which comes from meats, fish, and beans. Glucose is a single molecule of sugar and comes from complex carbohydrates, which come from starches like vegetables, beans, and whole grains like brown rice and oatmeal. Our digestive tract is responsible for providing the molecules that fuel and repair the human body. The stomach, liver, and gallbladder, pancreas, and small intestines purpose is to turn large food items like meats, fish, vegetables, whole grains, and beans into smaller pieces, then tiny particles, and then finally microscopic molecules that our body cells can use as nutrients. So the digestive tract works exactly like a disassembly line. Its purpose is to make food into smaller, then tiny, and then finally microscopic molecules that our cells will use as building blocks and fuel. This disassembly line is broken up into 4 sections: the stomach, the liver and gallbladder, the pancreas, and finally the small intestines. The stomach does most of the gross and rough type of digestive work and starts the digestion of large fibrous protein and meat in fish, fowl, and beans. The liver and gallbladder and pancreas pours its bile and digestive enzymes into the first segment of the small intestines called the duodenum. The liver and gallbladder then starts the chopping work on gross fatty tissue. The pancreas does most of the hewing type of work and is responsible for the bulk of digestion and gross type of reshaping work on meat, beans, vegetables, and grain fibers, converting them into proteins and carbohydrates. Then finally, the small intestines is responsible for the finish work, or completing the digestive process. The small intestines completes the breakdown of raw, large protein molecules and sands it down into microscopic amino acids. Amino acids are the building block used by cells in muscles, skin, and organ tissue. The small intestines chisels away excess
carbohydrate matter that turns complex carbohydrates into tiny molecules called glucose. Glucose is the high-octane fuel that our muscle tissue and brain uses to generate movement and thinking. The small intestines also trims away excess fat and converts it into fatty acids, which are the body's stores as secondary fuel in times of starvation. So how does the digestive tract break food down into protein, amino acids, fat, fatty acids, complex carbohydrates, and glucose? When we eat meat, fish, vegetables, beans, and whole grains like brown rice, these foods are like boulders that are being rolled down into the stomach. The stomach releases hydrochloric acid and an enzyme called pepsin that starts the breakdown process of what is called cleaving peptide bonds. These peptide bonds hold meat and bean fibers together. This, in essence, breaks the boulders down into rocks. When the stomach is done converting the boulders into rocks, the stomach sends these rocks to the pancreas, liver, and gallbladder. The liver and gallbladder releases bile, which emulsifies and breaks down fats into lipids. The pancreas releases a host of digestive enzymes that cleave away at meat and bean fiber, starch fibers, and lipids, converting them into proteins, smaller lipids, and complex carbohydrates. In essence, breaking down the rocks into pebbles. When the pancreas is done breaking the rocks down into pebbles, it sends the pebbles to the next and final section of the disassembly line called the small intestines. The enzymes released into the small intestines are made by bacteria that live in it. These enzymes are released into the small intestines, and they complete the digestive process by converting protein into microscopic amino acids and complex carbohydrates into glucose, essentially crushing the pebbles into dust, meaning amino acid and glucose, which the cells of the body use as building blocks and fuel. Again, the purpose of the digestive tract is to break down into small and then smaller, then tiny, and then finally tiny microscopic molecules called amino acids, fatty acids, and glucose, which then the cells of the human body can now use as its building blocks and fuel. The small intestine is essentially divided into three sections: the duodenum, the jejunum, and the ileum. The first section of the small intestine is where the pancreas, liver, and gallbladder release their digestive matter to begin the middle phase of digestion. The middle section of the small intestine is called the jejunum. In the jejunum is where the bacteria live and releases enzymes into the digesting mix of food and completes the digestive process. The bacteria releases enzymes into the jejunum to convert proteins into amino acids and complex carbohydrates into glucose. These enzymes are called maltose, lactose, sucrose, aminopeptidase, dipeptidase, phosphatase, and cellulase, to name the most important ones. Now, you may be asking, how do we absorb these amino acids, glucose, vitamins, and minerals into our bloodstream? And what about the third section of the small intestines? Good questions. The absorption of digested food, the amino acids and glucose, are absorbed into the bloodstream in the jejunum and ileum of the small intestines. They are absorbed into the bloodstream by way of passive diffusion, also known as osmosis. Osmosis of glucose and amino acids occur because of their tiny microscopic size. This microscopic and itsy-bitsy teeny-weeny size allows it to float right through the tiny microscopic holes that sit in the small intestines called microvilli and enter the bloodstream, where they can travel anywhere in the human body and feed the microscopic cells. So its tiny microscopic size is the key to absorption, and its lack of microscopic size is then the cause of heartburn, reflux, nausea, bloating, belching, flatulence, diarrhea, and alternating diarrhea and constipation. Now, let's look at what the medical physiology textbooks say about what happens when we cannot completely digest food into amino acids and glucose. So we're going to look at, I wish I had the book with me. I should have brought it with me tonight. It's called Review of Medical Physiology. Those of you watching on TV will magically see it appear. It's written by William F. Ganong. He's a medical doctor. We're going to look at the section on digestion and absorption. So in this section, the first gross section of digestion is the stomach, and in the stomach releases pepsin and hydrochloric acid. These pepsins and hydrochloric acid cleaves peptide bonds, so it's breaking down protein into amino acid. And then once the stomach is done turning boulders into rocks, the stomach sends these rocks to the next section of the disassembly line called the pancreas. And in the pancreas releases a lot of enzymes into the duodenum of the small intestine. So these enzymes are trypsin, chymotrypsin, elastase, carboxypeptidase, carboxypeptidase B, carboxypeptidase A, pancreatic lipase, pancreatic esterase, pancreatic alpha amylase, ribonuclease, deoxyribonuclease, and phospholipidase A and phospholipidase B. So what these are doing is they're cleaving peptide bonds, and they're cleaving bonds adjacent to aphilic amino acids. So they're breaking down proteins and fats, making them into smaller particles. They're also cleaving carboxy terminal amino acids. This means that it's breaking down starch into complex carbohydrates. They're turning monoglycerides into fatty acids, turning cholesterol into cholesterol, turning starch into complex carbohydrates. When the pancreas is done turning these rocks into pebbles, the pancreas sends the pebbles to the next and final section of the disassembly line called the small intestines. And in the small intestines, the bacteria release enzymes like enteropeptidase, amino acid peptidase, dipeptidase, maltase, lactase, sucrase, and alpha-limit dextrinase. So what these enzymes do is they complete the digestive process, turning proteins into amino acids and complex carbohydrates into glucose. So the pancreas is responsible for completing the digestive process. But what happens if a segment of this disassembly line or the digestive tract is weak and not able to do its job at completing the digestive process? So we're going to look at page 378 in the Review of Medical Physiology. So in this textbook, it's a common textbook used by most medical schools in America. So medical physiology is meant to teach medical school students on how the human body works on a microscopic level. So typically anatomy and physiology are courses taken almost in combination. Anatomy typically focuses on gross human body, meaning muscles, bones, organs, nerves, blood vessels. But how these muscles, nerves, organs, and blood vessels work is basically the form of physiology. So physiology is looking at how the human body works on a microscopic level. So on page 378, in the section on digestion and absorption, the physiologists write that, I'm going to read it as is first, and then I'll interpret for you later. So when we ingested disaccharides are hydrolyzed by lactase or sucrase on the luminal surface of the molecular cells. Deficiency of one or more of these disaccharide leads to diarrhea, bloating, and flatulence after the ingestion of sugar. The diarrhea is due to the increased number of osmotically active oligosaccharide molecules that remain in the intestinal lumen, causing the volume of the intestinal contents to increase. The bloating and flatulence are due to the production of gas, primarily carbon dioxide and hydrogen from disaccharide residues in the lower small intestines and colon. So what was all that fancy talk about? So I'm going to interpret for you now. So the physiologists say that when we eat starches, they are broken down by lactase or sucrase in the small intestines. So lactase and sucrase, and you'll see it on Olelo television, are enzymes that are released by bacteria in the small intestine. So again, when we eat starches, they are broken down by lactase or sucrase in the small intestines. Deficiency of one or more of these enzymes, so that means if we're missing one or more of these enzymes, that leads to bloating, diarrhea and flatulence after we eat sugars. Okay, so they're saying that if we're missing one of those enzymes, we're going to have bloating, diarrhea, and flatulence after we eat starches. Why? The diarrhea is caused because the increased number of osmolallically or undigested starch residues that remain in the small intestines. So if we can't digest complex carbohydrates into glucose, the complex carbohydrates can't be absorbed into our bloodstream because their size is too big. So they can't sit in our small intestine forever. So our small intestines understands that these starches haven't been digested completely. So they're going to get rid of the volume. So they're going to cause diarrhea to happen, flushing out these starches that cannot be absorbed anyway. Okay, so again, the diarrhea is due to the increased number of undigested starches that remain in the small intestine, causing the volume of intestinal contents to increase or to be flushed away. The bloating and flatulence, or passing of gas, are due to the production of gas from the undigested starch residues that remain in the lower small intestines and colon. So again, if we don't have the lactase and sucrase enzymes being released by the bacteria in the small intestines, we cannot complete the digestion of complex carbohydrates and turn them into glucose. So because they're not glucose, or because they are still complex carbohydrates, they cannot be absorbed into the bloodstream. So they're going to ferment right away, producing gas, which causes the bloating, belching, and the flatulence. So that's what we know about what happens when we don't have those digestive enzymes in physiology. Physiologically speaking, we understand why we have those symptoms, but we're treating them incorrectly in conventional medicine. So let's go a little bit further. So basically what I just had mentioned is that the cause of heartburn, reflux, nausea, bloating, belching, flatulence, diarrhea, alternating diarrhea and constipation, and or irritable bowel syndrome is that complete digestion of protein and carbohydrates are not taking place. The food products are not being converted into amino acids and glucose, thus not being able to be absorbed into the bloodstream and then staying behind in the small intestine and colon, causing these symptoms. So how are the symptoms of nausea, heartburn, and reflux being caused, though, right? So if digestion is weak or slow, what will happen to the food you eat? It would seem like it's essentially sitting there in your stomach and small intestines. Actually, many of my patients have said to me that their nausea feels like the food is just sitting there. And that's because that's exactly what's happening. Because if digestion is slow, your body can only digest the foods so quickly. So if it's slow, if digestion is slow, food will be sitting in your stomach and small intestines. So basically, it's going to be putrefying or rotting, causing your symptom of nausea. But what causes the symptoms of heartburn and reflux? So if digestion is weak or slow, and you eat a lot of food, what happens to the food that you consume last? It's going to sit in your stomach. So the food will sit and wait in your stomach along with the acid that your stomach produces to do its digestive part. When the food and acid sits in the stomach awaiting its turn at further digestion, the acid will start to irritate the stomach lining, causing heartburn and gastritis or indigestion. If more food is eaten and there is not enough room in the stomach, the food will essentially start to fill the stomach and press against the gastroesophageal sphincter, otherwise known as the door in between the esophagus and the stomach, causing the reflux or gastroesophageal reflux. In essence, the cause of most reflux, heartburn, nausea, bloating, belching, flatulence, diarrhea, alternating diarrhea and constipation, and irritable bowel syndrome is digestive weakness. However, most of the medications prescribed for these symptoms are antacids, H2 blockers, and proton pump inhibitors. These medications either neutralize acid or reduce the amount of acid being released by the stomach. It appears that conventional medicine believes that the bulk of these symptoms are being caused because too much acid is being released. Conventional medicine's remedy for these symptoms are to lessen stomach acid and thereby weakening digestion even further. Could this be the cause of the ever-increasing need for over-the-counter medications for digestive problems? We just learned that according to medical physiology that most of the cause of most of this digestive symptoms like reflux, heartburn, nausea, bloating, belching, flatulence, diarrhea, alternating diarrhea, constipation, and irritable bowel syndrome is digestive weakness, primarily weakness in the small intestine. It sounds like a good theory, but does this work? So let's find out. So my patient Quyen suffered from nausea, bloating, abdominal pain, alternating diarrhea, and constipation, as well as fatigue, insomnia, headaches, palpitations, and lightheadedness. Many physicians would have called this group of symptoms irritable bowel syndrome. Quyen, thank you for joining us on Island Wellness Center.
Thank you.
Quyen, would you describe the symptoms that you were experiencing and how bad they were?
Well, about 8 or 9 months ago, it started with me fainting on the airplane. And when I look back now, this has happened several times over a number of years.
Okay.
I just didn't really know what it was. So I would experience the nausea, the dizziness, lightheadedness, and sometimes even fainting, constipation, diarrhea, the bloating, all of those symptoms. And when I came back this summer, when the most recent incident happened, I was so sick that literally I always felt like I had something sitting in me. I never felt like I could eat, so I never really had an appetite, but I was always nauseous, and the headaches, the dizziness, like I couldn't even stand up to work. I teach, so I couldn't even stand up to teach. I had to sit down because I would always feel like I was going to pass out, or the nausea would just come on. And I had always noticed that it would come on, around eating time or shortly after I ate.
Okay.
Even the palpitations would come on at night if I ate late at night, or just even after eating I would experience palpitations. And this past summer I even took a couple trips to the ER because I thought there was something wrong with my heart. So I'd go in, and they ran all these tests. I had blood tests. I had so many blood tests done, and not my regular physician, not the ER doctors, not the neurologist, the gynecologist. Nobody could tell me what was wrong with me. And so I felt like I was going crazy because nobody could tell me what was wrong. And so I'm like, well, my heart is palpitating, and I'm feeling nauseous, and I'm getting dizzy all the time. There has to be something wrong. And nobody could give me any answers. So, but it was this. I think this past summer was probably the worst that I had experienced with it, just day after day, being nauseous and dizzy. So.
All right. Because of the palpitations at night, you were saying, it also disturbed your sleep.
Yes.
Right.
So, I wasn't able to sleep very well at all.
I guess because you weren't sleeping very well, that was causing fatigue.
Yes.
Could you describe the fatigue you were feeling?
Just exhausted through. Like in the middle of the day, I would feel like I need to take a nap. And even though I thought that I was getting a good amount of sleep, even though I knew it was always interrupted sleep, or I would go to lay down, couldn't fall asleep right away. So it really impacted the rest
how
of
you functioned.
Yeah, how I functioned.
Okay, so you were sleeping, I guess, maybe 7-8 hours, but because your sleep is interrupted because of the palpitation, maybe the reflux or the nausea, then that impacted on how you function during the day.
During the day, yes.
All right.
Yes.
You also mentioned that you had some dizziness and lightheadedness. Can you explain those?
I could just be sitting or teaching or doing whatever, and all of a sudden I would just get this really nauseous feeling.
Okay.
And then that would usually lead to some sort of dizzy spells.
Okay.
And so that would happen. It started to happen more often after this summer when I really got sick. And
On a daily basis?
Yeah, it was a daily thing.
Okay.
It was a daily thing.
So the nausea sounded like it was really bad.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, you felt really sick to your stomach.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, so.
Typically after meals.
Mhm.
And would you explain the diarrhea? Because a lot of people maybe can't understand why someone would have frequent diarrhea.
I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know why I was having it because I thought I ate pretty healthy. I usually tried to make really good food choices, ate a lot of fruit and vegetables.
Okay.
And it was interesting because even though I wasn't able to eat a whole lot, I would still experience the diarrhea and even constipation at times. Like there would be times where I'd go for periods not being able to go to the bathroom and then having the diarrhea.
Okay.
So.
Was the diarrhea urgent? Because a lot of patients who do suffer from digestive problems tell me that typically after meals they'd have to run to the bathroom to move their bowels because the diarrhea was coming.
I was experiencing more of that in the summer, but typically I could feel it coming on, and so then I would be able to go, but
okay.
in a timely manner.
Luckily, it was during the summer.
Yeah.
Okay, because Quyen's a teacher, so summertime she's not in class all the time.
Yes.
Right? So okay, but so it sounds like you had these symptoms off and on for a while.
Yeah, and actually just when I was thinking about it, it probably started, like the palpitations, the dizziness, and all of that, probably about 10 years ago, but I was seeing a cardiologist
for that.
for a heart problem.
Okay.
But they could never,
Figure
they put me on atenolol to slow my heart down. They, even talked about putting in a pacemaker because they said, oh, your heart just doesn't pump right. And, but, and then I would go to the ER doctor and they would tell me, well, there's really nothing wrong with you. So I was getting all kinds of mixed messages. So.
All right. No physician figured that you had a digestive problem?
This summer, I had a whole battery test, blood test. I even had an upper GI done on me, and I never heard back from the doctor on my results.
Okay. But this was about June, July of 2009.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Okay.
And I finally went back to the doctor again for, I think, the third time, and I said, I'm still not feeling well. I'm still sick. So he prescribed Nexium, I believe, which is like an acid reflux medication.
Right.
But he just prescribed it. He didn't tell me anything about how I should change my diet or, that maybe I shouldn't eat so late at night, nothing. And when I picked up the prescription, and I read the side effects, which were nausea, diarrhea, headaches, all of these things, I thought to myself, why would I want to take that? Because that's exactly what I'm trying to figure out how to get rid of.
Right.
So, and even when I was in the ER, they gave me an anti-nausea pill and prescribed it to me, and none of it made me feel any better.
Did it make you feel worse?
Yeah, I was feeling worse.
It actually made you feel worse. Okay, so that's what I was talking about when actually what's causing a lot of these symptoms are actually your digestion is actually weak.
Yes.
But if you take proton pump inhibitors like Nexium or other digestive medications like H2 blockers, they're actually going to decrease the amount of acids being released by your stomach, which will actually make your digestion weaker, which would probably make you feel worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously it wasn't working for you taking those
wasn't.
medications.
No.
All right. Okay. What did I say was causing your digestive weak problem, your symptoms, when you came in to see me? And when did you come in to see me?
I came in to see you towards the end of August of 2009 after I hadn't had any answers from a number of doctors. And so basically what you shared with me, what you just explained about how the digestive system works. So basically I had a very weak digestive tract, and my body was not able to break down the foods and be digested and delivered into the rest of my body system. And so it just, the way I understood it was it kind of created like this backup system in me, which so then of course there's always food sitting in my stomach, and that's what was causing the nausea and the dizziness and all of that, and then the diarrhea from all that food or the undigested food sitting in my small intestine.
Being needed to be evacuated.
Evacuated, yeah, need to go somewhere. So.
All right. What did I recommend for you to get better?
So basically the recommendation was to change my diet. And I thought that I already had a pretty healthy diet, but so basically I had to eliminate all processed foods, so even breads, pastas, white rice, sugar, flour, and even all fruits except for papaya.
Right.
So papaya was allowed to have because of the digestive enzymes.
Caffeine is in papaya.
So I ate one papaya every day because that's all the fruit I could eat, but I enjoyed every bite of it.
I bet. All right.
But so yeah, basically stayed away from any processed foods or any simple sugars.
I'm going to name the foods we eliminated.
Sure.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
But we had to eliminate a bunch of foods.
Yes.
Cookies, cakes, pies, pastries, chocolate, ice cream, candies, dried fruits, fruits, juice, soda, white rice, potatoes, cold cereals, breakfast cereals, alcohol, as well as some other foods.
Yes, tomatoes, bell peppers, and eggplants as well.
All right.
Yes.
So, and then we also, the reason why we eliminated those is to prevent the diarrhea and the other symptoms from occurring, bloating and belching and those symptoms. But we also gave you some supplements to help with digestion today, as well as fix your digestion for tomorrow and put the good bacteria back in your digestive tract.
Yes.
Would this, what did you think of my recommendations at that time? Did you think it would help you?
I was willing to do anything at that point. So I was very hopeful that it was going to help me. And I had actually heard from other people how well it works that have seen you or that have been to other naturopathic doctors.
So you had heard of this treatment or about me from other people?
Yes. And I and just from my own personal experience of learning how to change diet and experiencing a healthier well-being, I realized too that it really probably is how I eat, what I eat. So I was definitely a believer.
Okay.
Pretty quickly.
All right. The diet change was big.
Yes.
Was that hard to do?
At that point, no, because I was so desperate to get better. It wasn't hard. I was really excited, actually.
Okay.
So.
Actually, most of the patients that come in to see me, they are at that stage where they're pretty desperate because they may have had these digestive problems for, let's say, a few months to even 35, 50 years, if you can believe that. So looking for a different option because the medications aren't working. So, Quyen, when did you notice that your symptoms were improving?
I would say they started to improve. Within 3 days, I started noticing my nausea going away or lessening. The headaches were going away. The dizziness started to go away. It wasn't completely gone, but it had drastically dropped the amount of, the frequency of all of that. And I would say within a couple of weeks, I was feeling so much better. Still a little bit of troubles with sleeping, but I think that, because I was experiencing my digestive system working in a different way in the middle of the night.
You can envision it now.
Yeah. But over time, all of that got a lot better. So.
Okay. Did it help going over the medical books and you getting to actually read how our digestion works and what happens when our digestion doesn't work and how the symptoms develop?
Absolutely. I think it helped me to buy into the recommendation for my treatment a lot better because I was able to actually even picture what was going on in my own body. So being educated about it was extremely helpful in convincing myself that this was really the route that I needed to take.
How long was that first visit? Because, to go over the medical books, so that you could understand it. It's not going to just take 5 or 10, 15 minutes like you may have when you see a medical doctor. How long did it take?
I believe it was about 90 minutes. It was about an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole time I was completely engaged and really fascinated as to how the body, the digestive system really works. I never had it explained to me in that way, and it made total sense. And so it really did help me to really want to get on a plan.
Okay, so it helped you stay on or get on the diet and stay on it.
Yes.
Do you feel like it helped you with completing the treatment?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because now I understood the consequences of getting off of the diet if I were to get off of it, and how it would prolong the healing process of my digestive system. Mm-hmm. So I was in a place where I really, really, really wanted to get well. Mm-hmm. And as I started feeling better, I started realizing, wow, this is really great, and I want to feel like this all the time. I don't want to just feel like this for the length of the treatment. So.
All right. A lot of people are probably curious to what you mean by feeling great. We're going to talk about that in a minute, though. But would you describe that diet or what you were eating during the initial stage of the treatment? Because,
sure.
You cut out a lot of foods,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people are wondering, okay, that's all the food I eat, then what do I eat now if I'm on this type of diet?
Yeah, so basically a normal day, I would wake up, I would have oatmeal and a papaya, about half of a papaya, and then I would eat the other half for a snack. And then for lunch, I would usually have a salad with, omitting tomatoes or any kind of vegetable that I couldn't have. Mm-hmm. As far as dressing, I would either make my own hummus, omitting like the lemon juice, or I would put one of the healthier oils, olive oil or sesame oil, on. I might have fish or chicken. That's usually the kind of meats that I stuck to.
Okay.
So preparing a lot of my own food. I would have brown rice, maybe in the evening, some vegetables and some meat. So stuck to a pretty basic diet.
Okay. Was it hard for you to do?
Actually, no, it wasn't, because I had experienced eating that way before, mm-hmm. in addition to all the sweets and stuff.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad for me. Actually, it seemed a little bit easier because I wasn't having to think about, okay, should I eat this? Should I not eat this?
Yes.
So
it's black and white.
It was very black and white.
You eat this and you don't eat that. So that was easy for you.
Yes.
All right. Being on this type of diet, Quyen, you would think you lose a little bit of weight, right? Would you tell the audience how much weight you lost?
So from the time that I saw you, prior to seeing you, I dropped 10 pounds, but that was because I was so sick, I just couldn't really eat. Couldn't really eat anything. But then from the time I saw you to the peak of my weight loss, it had been about 20 pounds. So
20 pounds?
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah.
You had mentioned that in about 2 weeks you felt a lot better, mm-hmm. pretty much completely well. How long did it take you, though, to feel completely well, not having any of those symptoms?
I would say probably around a month and a half, couple months.
About 6 weeks?
Yeah, about 6 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
You didn't mind that, though, because you were feeling a lot better from day 3.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. After, you had mentioned, too, that you felt, really great. Mm-hmm. The audience is probably wondering what you mean by that. Because you were having nausea, abdominal pain, diarrhea, headaches. What do you mean by you're feeling really great?
Well, just everything. I felt like I was just really revitalized in a lot of ways. One of the big things was my sleep pattern. Because and even though I may not have been getting the whole 7 or 8 hours of sleep, maybe I only got 6, but it was eventually it became uninterrupted.
Okay.
And I was just completely rested, and I felt like my body was more nourished.
Okay.
And so I could go all day without feeling like I was going through a crash and having to take a nap in the middle of the day. And just everything about me, my emotions, everything was just really changed, really transformed.
So your energy level picked up?
Oh, my energy level picked up.
You see your memory and concentration was better?
Much better, much better.
I guess self-esteem was picking up?
Yes.
A lot of people wonder, how can that be? I mean, you only changed your diet. How do you get all these other benefits?
Well, it was all connected to the diet.
Digestion.
Yeah, the digestion.
Yeah. If you're not digesting your foods completely, you can't absorb the nutrients that you're eating. So once we fixed this problem, Quinn was absorbing all those nutrients that she was eating now, and that was helping her with her energy level. And Quinn, you had mentioned earlier too that you don't know how good you feel until you feel great.
Yes.
Because when you're feeling, a lot of people feel like, maybe they do have bloating and gas or some nausea.
And they think that's normal.
And they think that's normal for them.
Yeah.
But you don't know it until you're completely well.
Yes, absolutely. And that's really what I've been trying to, I even share that with my friends and my colleagues who may be experiencing similar symptoms, and I would tell them, but you really don't realize how good you can feel, or how healthy you can feel until you experience it, so it's kind of like getting that taste of goodness and then not wanting to go back to, something that wasn't so great.
That's right. Once you taste how good health feels,
yes,
you don't want to give it up.
No, you don't.
Yeah, it's almost like that movie that, I don't know the name of that movie. It was a Christmas movie with a comedian in there. He acted in, let's skip it because it's going to take me forever to explain that one.
Sorry, I can't help you.
Yeah. So you felt completely well in about 6 weeks. And then what was the next phase? I mean, we started to reintroduce foods back into your diet. We're mainly testing for food sensitivities. Other people may call it food allergies. Would you explain that process?
Sure. So we started reintroducing food. So I started out with probably some of my favorite vegetables. So tomatoes, and then it was going to be, I believe, bell peppers and eggplants. So what I had to do was I would have to eat tomatoes for 4 days, and the first couple of days I had to eat a lot of it, and then the next couple of days I could just eat, maybe once a day or something, or just a normal portion. Yeah, or not at all.
Okay.
And so, that's pretty much how I
so we tested each food one at a time that way. So each food typically takes 4 days according to physiology. The average food sensitivity takes 4 days to show itself. So 95% of the time we're going to see some kind of, if you're sensitive to a food, you're going to see some kind of symptom come on. So, and we test one food at a time.
Right.
So which foods were you sensitive to?
Tomatoes, bell peppers, eggplants, even bananas, oranges. I was sensitive to apples. I'm a little sensitive to as well. So more fruits than I had hoped to be sensitive to. But
did you eat a lot of these foods before?
Yes, in fact, for breakfast I would make a smoothie which had a banana in it every day. I used to do that, and ate a ton of apples all the time.
Right.
Oranges, when I would eat them, I would eat them consistently for a length of time.
Okay.
Tomatoes I ate every day in my salads. I cooked with bell peppers and eggplants. Love those vegetables, so I ate quite a bit of those.
And like you were saying, these foods are healthy.
Yes.
And you think you're eating healthy.
Yes.
Not realizing that they were actually causing some of your symptoms.
Yes.
Right? Because you're feeling nauseous and had abdominal pain, palpitations, and you're eating these foods regularly. Most people would think they're healthy, so why cut them out? But going through this process of eliminating these foods and then eliminating your digestive problems, and once you feel well, adding these foods back in and seeing the results of the reactions to them.
Yeah, it's really obvious. So, like for example, with the tomatoes, just the retaining water, the bloaty feeling that I get. So I can tell pretty quickly when my body is sensitive to something now, which is a good thing because then I know, okay, can't have that. So, yeah, it's amazing. It's just amazing how much more in tune I am with my body after being able to be healthy.
Yeah, that's what a lot of patients have mentioned after we're done with our treatment is they say that they are more aware now of their bodies.
Yes.
Yeah, how they feel, how food reacts against them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because if you feel well, if you feel really healthy, and then you have a symptom, it's easier for you to figure out maybe what's causing that
Yes,
problem.
yes.
Right? Okay. Would you tell the audience how you're feeling now?
Oh, wow. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling really, really good. As I reintroduce foods and figure out what I'm sensitive to, that's kind of the challenging part.
Mhm.
But again, like I said, it feels so good to know how to read my body now, or it's easier to read my body. But I think about how I used to be, or even when I wanted to diet just to lose weight, and I would restrict myself from certain foods. But now, because I have a better understanding of what's happening in my body with those foods, or not happening in my body with those foods, I have really completely lost the desire to even really indulge in, junk food, I guess you would say.
Good for you. Good for you.
So, and I don't feel like I'm depriving myself either.
Okay.
I feel like I'm rewarding myself.
All right. We had mentioned what the diet was like at the start, and now you've tested most of the foods, if not all, and added the majority of them back into your diet. Would you now tell the audience what you're eating?
So now I've expanded. So all of the foods that I wasn't sensitive to, so any of the fruits that I like, blueberries, I've even tried blackberries that I'm not sensitive to. So I'll eat those as well. Still not eating the nightshade family, but
because you're sensitive to them.
Because I'm sensitive to that.
Good for you. All
but
right.
Pretty much my diet, has stayed the same. Eating beans and different types of meats and stuff, but pretty much sticking to the healthy stuff. Not really eating a whole lot of breads or pastas. If I do, though, it's whole grain.
Okay.
And I'll eat those occasionally. So it's nice to know that I know that I can eat those if I'm in a situation where I'm going out to dinner with friends or eating at somebody's house.
So you're still trying to eat well?
Yes.
Even though you can eat pastas?
Yes.
You choose to stay away from them because they're not a healthy food?
They're not the best for me, yes.
Well, good for you. Very good, Quyen.
Thank you.
A lot of people, you mentioned meats. I mean, you don't eat too much meats, but a lot of people think that if you're having digestive problems, cut out the meats. But according to physiology, meats aren't causing that problem. And we left them in. You would have been okay.
And I was fine.
When you ate them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So typically the carbohydrates are the culprits of these problems, and we eliminate the simple carbohydrates to allow the digestive tract to heal. What would you like to share with anyone who suffers from chronic digestive problems?
Oh, I would really, really encourage you to go and seek medical attention from a naturopathic doctor that can really explain and break down the process of the digestive system to help you understand it, and then to put you on a plan, because really, really what we eat really does make a difference. And I can't emphasize it enough how much better you're going to feel. And there are other symptoms that I probably didn't mention that cleared up that I didn't even realize
was related to
digestive problems, or even like my skin not struggling with acne as much, and or like my menstrual cycle not really being a big deal at all. So just a lot of other things got better as my digestive system got healthier. So.
Did you know about naturopathic medicine before you came in to see me?
Not too. I mean, I've heard about it, and I've heard good things about it, and I wasn't against it or opposed to it. I just had never tried it.
Okay.
So, but because nothing else was working, that was my
Why
next
not give
option.
it a try?
Yeah, exactly.
You might be thinking yourself. You actually referred 3 friends to see me after your experience. Would you kind of just share a little bit about why you decided to refer them to me and how they're doing?
Sure. Well, basically, once I started on the plan, I think shortly after I saw you, I was so excited, and because I was noticing some of the symptoms going away right away, and most of them were my colleagues, and so they knew that I wasn't feeling good, but then after I had gone to see you, I was sharing with them about it, and there were a couple of them that were like, oh, I should probably go see him. And I would really encourage them just because of the marked difference that I was seeing in my own health. So they started going to see you. And just like for me, they started getting better and getting to, a place of health where they didn't have to take certain medications but just everyone that I've referred and has seen you has been very, very pleased. So.
You had referred a couple of people who had digestive problems
Mm-hmm.
and a few others who, I guess maybe you referred 4 maybe,
Mm-hmm.
That didn't have digestive
Mm-hmm.
problems,
Mm-hmm.
but was other types of
Right,
problems.
right.
So not only the individuals who had digestive problems have gotten
Right.
better,
Mm-hmm.
but also the ones who
even allergies,
allergies
or, yes,
and
or
hypertension.
diabetes, blood pressure, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess you're still in their in-group.
Yes.
All right, Quyen. What would you like to tell the audience about your feelings about naturopathic medicine in general now?
I have I've made the decision to not even go to a regular doctor anymore, just because this route for me has worked the best, and of course it's the most natural way, and it makes the most sense to me. And it's manageable, it's doable. It's not like you have to go and take a bunch of drugs that are going to give you additional side effects.
Mm-hmm.
But everything is in it to help me get better in every area. So.
Right. I guess what you're saying is you were experiencing the nausea, the abdominal pain, the diarrhea, but also you had symptoms of heart palpitations, insomnia, lightheadedness, dizziness, and initially the physicians were treating you for heart problems, even though you didn't have a heart problem, according to tests.
Yes.
Right. These symptoms continued and actually got worse.
Yes.
And finally you were given proton pump inhibitor medications, which actually made you worse.
Right.
So then by treating the cause of your problem, you're actually now resolving your issues, but also on top of that, your health has even improved.
Yes. A bunch.
You got a lot for
yes,
for
just
your
all
problem.
for my problem. It's wonderful.
So you not only resolved those symptoms, but you also started to feel a lot better in other areas.
Yes.
So energy.
Absolutely.
I guess memory and concentration, those kinds of things.
Yes.
All right.
And
Quyen.
just my whole attitude about taking care of myself has really changed too. So.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Well, Quyen, I'm sorry to say that our time is up. You've been a great guest. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us on Island Wellness.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for joining us and tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the program and learned something of value. I hope you continue to look for and tune in to Island Wellness on Olelo Television. I'm Dr. Jason Uchida. Good night.